All right, at the time of this filming, a lot of people are sort of freaking out, like the media, and maybe so, maybe rightly so, about the Ebola virus originating in West Africa, where nearly 5,000 people have died from this virus. There's all kind of arguments going on about travel bans to the United States. One man has already come to Houston, Texas, was dismissed from a hospital, later died. Even the healthcare workers that interacted with this man thought they had taken some preventative measures to keep them from getting the virus, but have since gotten the virus, even gotten on an airplane. So there's all kind of talk about this Ebola virus. The question I have for you today is, what can we learn from this? What life principle exists? What life point exists? Where does truth intersect everyday life when we look at something like an Ebola virus? Well, there was a movie that came out, and I don't doubt you haven't seen it, but you may have heard of it, 1995, called Outbreak. It was a big deal when it came out. It stars Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo, and Morgan Freeman. And oddly enough, this is about a virus that originates in a monkey in Africa, and it makes its way around the world, either it becomes an epidemic or a potential pandemic. And it's called the Mataba virus in this movie. And it kills you within 3 days, and it sort of kills you by way of internal bleeding. So there's this big crisis from these, and even military intervention in this movie, as how the United States government is going to protect its citizens from the Mataba virus, and how scientists are going to come up with an antibody for it. And it's a pretty fascinating concept, kind of freaks you out a little bit, thinking about the eventuality. And then even today with this Ebola going around, you think, man, I wonder if this could turn into that movie scenario. Now, in the movie, this Mataba virus becomes centralized in a town, in a nice little, pretty little valley there, surrounded by nice green mountains. And there's a conversation going on. If the antibodies can't be produced, if the original patient zero, or the monkey that originated this thing, can't produce an antibody, they're going to have to use an incendiary bomb that's going to incinerate this virus, and they're going to have to kill their fellow Americans for the sake of the rest of the country and even the world. So this is pretty serious. So fast forward to 2014, we're not in 1995 anymore, in Fantasyland in Hollywood. Now we're in the real world, and there's this debate going on about Ebola and what to do about it. What's the principle? Well, Old Testament-wise, the Jews, the Israelites, were riddled with potential threats of disease. They were told not to take plunder away from other towns for fear they're going to bring back a sexually transmitted disease. The Old Testament version of AIDS. When AIDS came out, there was this almost hysteria about catching it or not understanding how it's transmitted, and the whole dynamic there, and AIDS going everywhere, and scientists are trying to figure it all out. Old Testament was that way. Even the Israelites were told how to clean what they had and where to go to the bathroom to prevent disease from affecting them as a people, and eventually the seed of Christ, which is within these Israelites. So there's a lot of discussion right now about how Ebola is passed through fluids, passed through, is it eventually airborne dynamic? So this is the idea, but what's the principle? Let's get off the physical illness for a minute. We transmit to one another in our culture freely, too freely, I would add, philosophies, ideologies, mindsets, opinions, relativism, moral relativism, political correctness, new faiths, new religions, false religions. We transmit and exchange these things like they're nothing in our culture. We have gotten ourselves to the point where we lack the discernment to block the transmission of these ideologies without thinking. We've become a people who don't think. And philosophically and ideologically, we exchange these things and we adopt them, we accept them, we become infected with them without discerning and testing what it is we've come to newly believe. This is equally as dangerous to exchange falsehoods, to exchange ideology and philosophies without any discernment, without any checking, without any vetting of what's going on. And it leaves many people around the world without an anchor. They become the nail and not the hammer. The latest fad, the latest opinion, the latest movement, the latest philosophy, the latest religion, they adopt and become infected with willingly. They exchange their good emotional, spiritual health for whatever comes down the pike. Jesus said this is going to happen in the last days. Well, it's happening. We have no protocol, no filter for which to adopt things anymore. And we wonder why people are aimlessly wandering through life looking for meaning and purpose and something absolute, some anchor they can hold on to. Well, from a Christian perspective, the spiritual Ebola is just that. You need a filter. You need the Word of God. You need something that can test something to see if it's discernibly good, worthy of adopting, worthy of receiving. I see people on TV today, it grieves me, they don't know who the Vice President of the United States is. They don't know in what year Columbus discovered America. It's crazy to me how we have just adopted so many things and thrown out so many things that we know to be true for the sake of this spiritual Ebola that makes its way around the world, not in local areas only, but as a pandemic. We're a world without boundaries, without discernment. And we best protect ourselves and you best, I best figure out what it is we're going to use to screen everything that comes down the pike and learn to think for ourselves about things in matters of faith, even politics. Think and discern for yourself. It's part of what we're trying to get at in Lifepoints, is to help you become a thinker, an educated, rational, logical thinker before we just adopt anything, any disease, any philosophy that comes down the pike. There's your life point, Ebola. We can learn something from it.